Shrek 2 is a beloved DreamWorks animated movie sequel with its humor and story that adults and children can both enjoy. It's uncommon with movies that the sequel can live up to the same success as its predecessor. But Shrek 2 lives up to that success of the first movie. But did you know that there's video games based on both these movies? And unlike the movie, the first game has some not great reviews. But I don't care about that one. I never played it as a kid, and I'm all about nostalgia chasing on this channel, but I did play the second one quite a bit as a kid, and I have fond memories of it. But I'm gonna rip off those rose-tinted glasses and play Shrek 2 and see if it even comes close to comparing to the Shrek 2 movie. So if you haven't seen the Shrek movies, I suggest you go watch the first two right now and then come back and watch this video. If you don't want to get spoiled, that is. Because I'm about to give a quick rundown of Shrek 2 the movie. The ogre Shrek and his companion Donkey save the human/ogre princess Fiona, who then goes on to marry Shrek in the first movie, released in 2001, which has the start of the second movie, released in 2004, having the newlywed ogre couple forced back to the Princess Fiona's hometown, far, far away land. This is just a fairy tale version of Hollywood. They're forced back to meet the rulers of this land, Fiona's parents, and Fiona's parents aren't receptive to their daughter marrying Shrek, where they end up trying to get rid of Shrek. In this process, Shrek gets sad and ends up trying to become a human to make himself more attractive, while a fairy godmother nefariously tries to get her son, Prince Charming, to marry Fiona. After storming a castle, Shrek defeats the fairy godmother and Prince Charming. Then Shrek and Fiona realize they both love each other for who they are and decide to stick to being ogres. The movie features voice acting roles from Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy, and Cameron Diaz, and none of these actors return to their roles in the game. The movies are a satire of fairy tales with lots of characters showing up from old fairy tales with modern humor mixed in, and I feel like the game developers got this rundown while making the game because that's pretty much all the similarities between the game and the movie. I've talked about this in previous videos, but when making a game based on a movie, they usually are being worked on at the same time, and between different teams, which means the game team usually has to make shit up because they don't have everything from the movie, and also not everything translates from the movie to the game either. Not everything could be Peter Jackson's King Kong where the game is just as good as the movie. But let's see how the Shrek 2 game holds up. The Shrek 2 game was released in 2004 and was developed by Luxoflux and published by Activision. The version I played was on the GameCube, and it was also released on Xbox and PS2. It was ported on the PC as Shrek 2 Team Action because there was already another completely different game for the PC called Shrek 2. There's also another completely different side-scrolling platforming Shrek 2 for the Game Boy Advance. But the Shrek 2 I played starts off similar to the movies, with a fairy tale book that sets up our hero's journey to far, far away land to meet Fiona's parents. But Shrek is hungry and needs slug eyeballs to eat before they can leave, which isn't in the movies because they just make shit up for the sake of gameplay throughout this entire game. This game has you control up to 4 characters at a time with their own unique attacks and abilities, which you can swap between, or you can have your friends play with local shared screen multiplayer. You can see which character you have selected and their health at the bottom of the screen, but the picture they use for each character is a little haunting. The graphics aren't the best in this game. It does shine through sometimes, but it leads to some pretty funny looking moments. There's a certain amount of quests that you must complete between each level, as well as some optional ones, which take a photo when completed that you can view in the main menu of the game. And our first one is the collection of the slug eyeballs. You start off punching these slugs that don't put up much of a fight, but there's a lot more enemies throughout the game. And you get a wide range of attacks and abilities amongst all the characters, but you don't get much defense other than just moving and jumping away from the enemies. This can lead to situations where you can just get stun locked from an enemy and there's just no way to defend yourself. This has the combat, which there is a lot of, feel just kind of meh. It can be fun sometimes, but the jankiness sometimes comes through and ruins the fun that I'm having. The platforming works better than the combat with less amount of jank. Each character has different jump heights, which have you use certain characters for platforming, as well as characters with unique abilities that allow them to interact with certain objects around the map. Use these gameplay mechanics to make your way through the first level, with some familiar faces from the first movie that don't appear in the second movie. They don't even appear in the first game. They were really trying with what they had to fill out the game as much as they can. They even gave the ability of slowing down time to Fiona, which I think is a reference to the slow-mo fight scene in the first movie, as well as the scene where she sings to the birds to make them explode. The bird exploding part in the game is actually a minigame that ends off the first level, and is the first hero time, which are minigames that you have control only one character to clear some sort of obstacle. And every time one of these starts, it says hero time in the weirdest way.
Hero time!
Another weird thing is the non-stylized text that shows up after defeating enemies that just says, "Good job." It just looks very lazy and out of place. It may sound like I'm talking a lot of shit about the game so far, but I was still having some fun with it. The first level brought back a wave of nostalgia, and fighting my way through some of the jank the game had to offer was still fun, even though a little bit of that fun was just laughing at the game. The end of the level also introduces Lil Red, who's a playable character in the second level, who isn't a main character in the movie but takes a big role in this game. The whole second level isn't even in the movie at all, but I'm just gonna stop mentioning that now because this whole game hits those same story beats I talked about earlier when I was just talking about the movie, but does it in a completely different way. So if I was talking about all the differences, it would be this entire game. The second level has you protect the 3 blind mice as they stumble through a graveyard. If any of them die, it loads you back to the last checkpoint, and it's a fun switch up compared to the first level, but if you move too fast, like I did, you can miss where all the obstacles are and the mice die a lot. So far the game's been switching up gameplay style and has been keeping it fresh and fun. I played this solo, but I do remember playing this with friends when I was a kid, and it would make this experience a whole lot better with friends. The next level is an assortment of minigames that are tasks from Fiona's father from Far Far Away Land. But the level after that is a huge switch up. The game introduces Puss in Boots, who's hired by Fiona's father to kill Shrek. But the whole fight against Puss is done in a quick time event, and after defeating him, he puts on a cute face that does not translate well to this game. And then he ends up joining the Shrek crew. After finding out that Fiona's father put out a hit on him, Shrek thinks that he isn't enough just being an ogre, and wants to travel to the fairy godmother to drink a potion to become a human. Along the way, they fight through a bunch of pumpkins as well as helping the 3 little pigs. After getting their way to the fairy godmother and fighting their way through her potion factory, Shrek gets his wish of becoming human, but is in prison and it's up to the other characters to break him out and get back to Far Far Away Land to stop fairy godmother's son, Prince Charming, from marrying Fiona, who's trapped under a spell. All this gameplay before was kept fresh and switched up a lot before anything got too tedious, and if you failed and died at a certain point, it was pretty relaxed, just dropping you back to the previous checkpoint. But the last boss fight is a little too long, and if you die, you have to start the whole boss fight from the beginning. Fighting the trolls is the absolute worst part of it. You can only attack them by throwing their bombs back at them, and with multiple trolls, it gets so chaotic. After finally beating Fairy Godmother, Shrek and Fiona just live happily ever after. And that's it to the game. There's a few bonus levels, as well as a trailer for the Shark Tale game that looks so familiar to me, but I don't know if I actually played it or if I just watched this trailer on this game. Now, the Shrek 2 game to me is overall kind of mid. I remember it being a lot better as a kid. The thing that makes this game passable is the constant switching of gameplay to keep things fresh, but I think the combat is its biggest downside because it's not that insanely hard, it's just super outdated, which makes it feel a little slow and janky. The rest of this game feels a little janky too, but it almost makes the game fun. Its bad character models make the game look insane and sometimes give me a good laugh. I feel like this is one of those games that's just held up by nostalgia for me. It feels like such a dated game while playing it, while there are other games I go back and play that feel so timeless and hold up to modern games with smooth controls, but Shrek 2 isn't one of them. The movie is far better than the game. The user reviews aren't too bad from this game, but the Shrek 1 game looks pretty bad, so maybe I'll have to go review that one next.